Next up, we have the Paredes and Morel swap. So Isaac Paredes going over to the Cubs and Christopher Morel coming over to the Rays. I'll just start off quickly with this one. I don't have a ton to say on it. It's a bit odd. I can't
Yeah.
tell really who. It almost feels like you had two guys that kind of needed a change of scenery. Isaac Paredes has been having a relatively productive year. I remember he was hot, like Rays fans were over the moon. The 6 Rays fans that exist were over the moon when he came over from the Tigers. Kind of like confused why the Tigers would let this guy go. He has very good power. He's able to drive the ball, pull the ball into left field. He's not a super opposite field hitter. I don't think he's hit a single home run in his career to the opposite field. Um, but I think it almost feels like there's two guys here that almost needed a change of scenery. I can't tell if the Rays were selling here or if they just happened to be like, hey, look, let's just get a swap for a player that we know has potential to be a big power hitter. Maybe we can kind of get him back on track with a change of scenery. But a bit of an odd trade here. I think both these teams are kind of out of it. I don't see either of these teams making the playoffs throughout the year. So it almost kind of feels like they're both trading for the future. Two guys with control past this year and I believe past next year as well. So
So
Yeah.
for me, this was a really interesting trade. I think these guys are so similar, but also polar opposite at the same time. I think I do like I do like the trade for the Rays because the Rays just seem to unlock these players, and we know the potential Christopher Morel has with his power, and he's just an extremely streaky player. But if you look at kind of like the advanced parts of this, like as Paredes has a 26% barrel percentage, a 5% hard hit rate, 57th percentile in sweet spot, and 8th percentile in bat speed, and a 44th percentile in squared up percentage. But if you look at Christopher Morel, he's 80th percentile in barrel, 71st percentile in hard hit, but second percentile in sweet spot. So he's missing pitches that you should be able to hit. 97th percentile in bat speed and 11th percentile in squared up percentage. So it's like these players are polar opposite, but I feel like they're both extremely streaky. But I think I do think if you're in a win now mode, I do like the Cubs' perspective from this, getting a player who's made a few All Stars, who's been just kind of performing. He does have like a 134 WRC plus. So a team that really needs the offense and a team that's in a winnable division in the Central, I do like it from the Cubs, but I think the Rays can hopefully unlock Christopher Morel and we can see the potential of him.
Yeah. I mean, the whole Chris Morel Paredes, like, it's kind of baffling because it's like, okay, you're Chicago. Are you buying or selling? Right? I mean, like, you're last in the division right now. Granted, you do have the smallest gap in any division between last place and first place. So I will give you that. So if you guys are making this, emergency push, um, I don't understand why it was Morel. Uh, that's kind of the question. I mean, yeah, he's hitting under 200 right now, but like I said, or like you guys were saying, the potential, and like with the way that things are going right now for Chicago, like I don't know. I feel like Morel was kind of a fan favorite. I feel like people in Chicago were starting to like really like grasp onto him, and I mean, Chicago has sour taste in their mouth at the deadline from what happened to them a few years ago. So I think that kind of takes it into consideration. But I think Morel's overall in the long run the better player um, than Paredes. But once again, it's like, I mean, are you selling or buying Chicago? Like, because it's really
I
this
think it's
really
a
was just
win-win
kind of
trade.
like a. I think you're right. I think you're right. I think
Yeah.
Tampa Bay gets a little more youth, and I think that I mean, well, I mean, like a year maybe.
They're both
maybe
25
more.
years old. They're both the
Yeah,
same. Like if you really look at it, like they're same, but like Shauna was saying, a little different. I would hop on the train that I think the Cubs make out a little better just because they get a guy who can just put the ball and play more. He's batting over 200. You know, um, Morel might be a little faster and might be able to do something with the glove a little different, but I think I would take Paredes' bat. Just seeing what we've seen from these two guys in their careers right now. Yeah, obviously the Rays, last place team. They're 3 good AL East teams. I think, I don't know. Maybe there's just a conversation between these 2 last place teams. And like, we need to keep our fans engaged. We need to do something. What like I really like Paredes. Yeah, maybe the Rays are like, I really like Morel, and they just let's swap them just to make some noise. Let's get our say we did something this trade deadline. Because if I'm the Rays, I feel like Paredes was a guy I want to keep, but obviously you see Randy Rosarena leave. Maybe they need a new identity. They're getting rid of all these guys. They're gonna do an overhaul, work on Morel's swing a little bit, get that average over 200, and we'll see what happens. And for the Cubs, if they get healthy, they aren't completely out of it, and you add a good bat like Paredes in there, you get Cody Bellinger going again, and things could take off. Maybe it is just we move a piece and that lights a fire under some guys, and see how get the ball rolling.
Yeah, no, you're right. I think that Tampa Bay develops players a lot better, and I think that Paredes is more of a win now option, more of a Morel.
Well, there's
So
Yeah,
also
but-
2 other
but-
prospects
but-
that were sent, so I do think that this was a buy for the Cubs and a sell for the Rays, just because there was prospect capital in this. But
I guess,
It's
but I mean
very-
that also
very
goes by
interesting trade.
value for the player. I mean, Morel is basically 0 WAR player, whereas Paredes is got like a 1.3. Paredes is under control until 2028, and Morel till 2029. So again, both guys with control into the future, and I think the Cubs might be looking at like, hey, look, this year we didn't really hit it on the mark. We kind of had some holes in our order, and like again, Morel and Paredes both power bats, right? I think we would both quantify them as power bats, but like Sarge said, Paredes puts the ball in play more, and that's something that the Cubs are dependent on. They just need to get the offense moving, and their pitching hasn't lived up to its potential this year. All right, so moving on